Let's have a little chat, shall we? A little occult chat. I'm going to keep my voice down because my boyfriend is asleep. He has to get up and go to work in the morning. But we're going to have a little bit of an occult chat. A little bit of little talk. Mm. You know, I love chewing gum. You know what I find interesting? Now I'm going to stay on topic tonight. You know, I've tried to make this video 4 times within the past few days. And each time that I tried, I was interrupted. Hopefully, nobody will knock at my door or anything like that. But I want to talk about something. Like I said, let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, this guy named Glenn, and he's very conscious, very powerful energy, and he is 100% heterosexual. Let me just say that. I want to respect his energy. You always respect a person's energy, right? And without going into personal details, Glenn had a very profound spiritual experience. And in this experience, in this inner journey that he took within, he saw what we call the ego, or at least his interpretation of the ego. And when I tell you that when he explained to me everything that he experienced within that spiritual experience, it was amazing, because it was almost as if he was writing his own spiritual book the way that he was speaking to me. It was almost as if I was reading out of the book of Revelations. And this is what I wanted to talk about. The way he described the ego as an entity sitting on its throne. See, a lot of times people, and myself included, I believe I've done this too, people mistake the ego for something else. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. He told me that the ego was sitting on its throne, sitting on a throne, in all of its so-called illusionary glory. And he said that even though the ego had the illusion of being powerful and of being the glorified know-all to be-alls, he knew that the ego was an imposter and a fraud. He knew that the ego did not belong on that throne. Let me repeat that. He knew that the ego did not belong on that throne. He knew that the ego was in the wrong position, that the ego was in the driver's seat of our minds, where it didn't belong. But he also said that the ego, he could see, was very fragile and frail and afraid of annihilation. But the image that it projects to the world is a false image of strength, a false image of power, when in actuality the real power source is the subconscious mind. He gave me this information and I decoded it and interpreted it in my own way. And what I really, and me and Glenn had a conversation about this. And what I began to understand, the more and more that he spoke and the more and more he told me about his spiritual experience, the more and more I understood what that meant for me. See, Glenn is, how can I put this? Glenn is a light bearer. He's a light bearer. He is part of the real Luciferian energy. He turns on the lights in the dark and he gives people enlightenment. That's what he does. And he can see things with clear focus because he's a real spiritualist. See, let me tell you something. People think because spirits may communicate with them that makes them a spiritualist. And that's not really true all the time. What makes you a spiritualist is not what you know. It's what you can do with that energy. You know, you hear a bunch of people always, especially a lot of Negroes, always talking about what the fuck they know. But what the fuck can you do? You know what I'm saying? But stay on topic. I'm going to stay on topic. So Glenn giving me that information turned on a light inside of me. Because I am a master. I am a master teacher. But the thing is, I'm not a master teacher in my ego. Because you can't be a master teacher if you're not willing to learn anything else. See, I'm willing to learn from anyone if they have something conducive to say that will expand my consciousness. See, Glenn, I'm sorry, Glenn, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but right now, you that motherfucking nigga, okay? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just telling you the truth. See, Glenn is that motherfucking nigga. He knows how to change. He has the power and ability to change hearts and ultimately change the mind. The mind and the heart are really the same energy. But the illusion is that it's separated. Mind and heart go hand in hand. Matters of the heart connects to the mind. He has the ability to change the heart and to change the mind. And if you can revolutionize and change the mind, you can change the motherfucking and control the universe. And that's what he can do. I was absolutely amazed at the information that he was giving me that came back from his inner journey, from his own personal experience, and the fact that he was able to get over the fears and to take that deep inner journey within and to come back and report to me what he did. I took that information and I applied it to what I saw, and I decoded it and made it into my own interpretation for me and the culture that we're living in right now. This is what I'm talking about. The ego is the AntiChrist that everyone is talking, that everyone is always talking about in the book of Revelations. The ego is the Antichrist. And in the book of Revelations, which, the Bible is a book of symbols, allegories, synchronicity, and symbology. And it takes wisdom to be able to really look past all of the fancy words and all of the other stuff that is really there to kind of throw you off. This has nothing to do with Christianity and its literal interpretation of Scripture. This has nothing to do with that. This is not this type of motherfucking channel. I am decoding what I know about the information in regards to the Antichrist. And the reason that this is so important to me is because I remember back in the mid 90s, early 2000s and shit like that, there were, televangelist shows like Jack Vanapee Presents, I think he's dead now, and other shows that were always prophesizing this Antichrist was going to rise up as some world leader and take over the world and all that. Well, here's the news flash. The Antichrist is already here. And most people don't even know it, but most people, you are the Antichrist. Most people are, the people are the Antichrist. Our culture is the Antichrist. Our disconnection from spirit, our disconnection from soul, our inability to expand our consciousness is the Antichrist. The disconnect from your heart chakra is Antichrist. The ego is the Antichrist. When you read the book of Revelations, when they're talking about a leader will rise up called the Antichrist, they don't use that word, they call him the beast. But in actuality, the beast is melanin. So what they did is they intertwined melanin with the so-called Antichrist to cause confusion and conflict and to cause programming into the subconscious minds of masses of people to make them think that black people are horrible people. But in actuality, the Antichrist, or the rise of the Antichrist that they talk about in the book of Revelations, is really nothing more than the rise of the ego. The rise of the ego, the rise of the great magicians. It's not one person, it's on a mass level. That is why we feel, a lot of people may feel, I'm not going to say I feel it, I mean maybe a little, but not much, because by me being what I am, I can kind of see past the illusions and the bullshit. But that is why we feel like we're in like a malaise or like a foggy type of energy. That's why it feels that way. Because more than 90% of the people on this planet are infected with the Antichrist syndrome. Because the world is not operating on soul and spirit anymore. It's operating on Antichrist energy. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Look at the current state of Hollywood. Look at the current state of anything that has to do with politics, entertainment, social media, even the black so-called spiritual occult community / conscious community. Look at everything. Look at how they have misrepresented and abused people's energies, especially other black people's. Look at how it's all about cash apps, self gratification, no commitment to expanding your consciousness anymore, no commitment to expanding your heart chakra, which is the gateway to the higher realms. Because the crown and the heart chakra actually go hand in hand, because the crown is the throne. So going back to my friend Glenn, who had that spiritual experience, when he saw the ego, or his interpretation of the ego, sitting on a throne, he was actually seeing the ego sitting on the, what people would call, the crown chakra, which is the Christ consciousness. The heart chakra is the gateway to that realm. These are realms. They're not really chakras, they're realms. In the Bible, they say that the Antichrist will falsely sit himself, or put himself on the throne in the temple of Christ, or God, in Jerusalem. Symbolically, what they're talking about, or what that really means, is that the ego has taken the throne over from the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is actually the Christ. That's the Christ. That's the throne. I'm sorry, that is the real power source that should be sitting in the throne, or that should be in control, the subconscious mind. So when it says in the Bible, let me say it again so people can understand what I'm saying. In the book of Revelations, when they talk about how the Antichrist will sit on the throne of God in Jerusalem, they're talking about the ego sitting on the throne, impersonating the subconscious mind, in layman's terms, pretending to be pretending to be God. But in actuality, the ego is temporary. The ego is temporary. The Antichrist is not the son of Satan, as people falsely believe. The Antichrist has nothing to do with Satan. Satan is melanin. I know people don't want to hear that. But Satan is melanin. And I don't give a fuck who gets offended by it. Satan is melanin. Christ and Satan are just the opposite sides of polarity. One side is dark, the other side is light. That's it. The Antichrist is not the son of Satan. The Antichrist is an entity. The Antichrist is the ego. And it's not a person. It's a mass state of consciousness that has created illusions, delusions, and you see it in everyone now. Lack of compassion, lack of responsibility, lack of and no accountability. You see it in everyone. And that is why a lot of things are crumbling right now. You know, that's why a lot of things are crumbling. So when Glenn had this experience and when he was talking about the ego, it made me realize what this world is being run on right now. And it's being run by the Antichrist consciousness, which is the ego, on a mass level. But to cause confusion, they tried to intertwine Satan, melanin, and other things within it to cause mass confusion. So people can't really see what's going on. There's no one person that's going to rise up. The Antichrist is in everybody, just about. The Antichrist is a state of consciousness that has been put out, and it was created. It's created through, a lot of this artificial technology that we have, disconnecting from your families. And I don't mean blood relations, I mean being disconnected in general, not wanting to have social relationships with people, wanting to hide online but never wanting to see the person. Social ineptness. That's the Antichrist consciousness. Not knowing how to be social anymore. Everything is about being egotistical. Everything is about a cash app. Everything is about you give me. Give, but you shall not receive. There's no longer a balance in this world anymore. The subconscious mind is divine feminine energy. You see, the ego is toxic masculine energy. Oh, yeah. The ego is toxic masculine energy without the balance of feminine energy. So, in actuality, they have to keep black women shut. They have to keep black women, how can I put this? They have to keep you all on a certain level, because if black women were allowed to really tap into their true power, if they were left to their own devices without being mind controlled, harassed, stalked, gang stalked, and stuff like that. If black women were left to their own devices, black women would really be some bad motherfuckers. But because black women have been lied to and bamboozled and put under all types of rituals and spell work and mind control, etc., etc., black women don't really know their true potential and their true power. Because the subconscious mind, that's black divine feminine power. It's feminine power in general. You feel what I'm saying? It takes someone like me and other people to really be able to see past, all of these illusions and games and bullshit. Let's take the black so-called conscious community, for example. The occult conscious, the black occult or conscious community, whatever you want to call that shit. All of these so-called motherfucking high-level occultists, right? But they're supposed to be this and they're supposed to be able to do that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of them are under the Joan Crawford effect. Let me tell you what I mean when I say that. Joan Crawford was a woman who grew up, and for those who don't know who Joan Crawford is, they made a movie about her called Mommy Dearest. No, for you younger millennials, no, Faye Dunaway was not Joan Crawford. She was portraying Joan Crawford, because a lot of people don't know that movie was about a woman, an actress from the 20th century named Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was a actress from the 1920s. She made she came into stardom playing characters of women who were the poor girl that rose up to the top. Okay, but anyway, her adoptive daughter Christina Crawford wrote a memoir about her, a book called Mommy Dearest, back in 1978. 1978, yeah, a year after Crawford had died. And in the book, she alleged horrible abuse from Joan Crawford. Now, I know what you all are thinking. What does this have to do with those Negroes? And I'm talking about the black men in that black conscious occult community. Well, a lot of them grew up the same way. A lot of them came from New York, a lot the ghettos of New York, Philadelphia, and Lord knows where else. And they grew up, they expanded themselves materialistically, but they did not expand their consciousness. Same thing with Joan Crawford. She grew up in horrible, horrible poverty in San Antonio, Texas. Her mother was abusive. A lot of these same Negroes, they come from abusive households too. Her mother was abusive towards her, which shut down her heart chakra. It shut down her her root. It destabilized her root. Let me just say it destabilized her root, destabilized her heart chakra. Same thing with a lot of these black men in the black occult community. They got rich off of, people giving them money for their services. But they were still of a poverty mindset. Same thing with Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was equivalent to Angelina Jolie. Okay? She was considered beautiful. She was rich. She had plenty of money. But the one thing that she could never get off of her was her upbringing and the things that she had to do in order to break into show business, in order to break into the movies and become a star. She could never ever get that stench off of her. And she felt that. And she carried that poverty around with her throughout her entire life. You understand what I'm saying to you? She carried that with her. I know I'm switching gears a little bit, but that's what I do. I'm the occult view, aka Seer Grant. I can do that. She could not get that off of her. And she carried that pain and shame and poverty around with her. She had a poverty spirit that was on her. Poverty spirit has nothing to do with making money. You can make a lot of money and still be in poverty. And I'm not the only one that has said that. There have been other people that have said that too. And a lot of these niggas in the black occult conscious community, they walk around with that same stain on them. They grew up in the ghettos. They grew up with rats in their fucking apartment. They grew up under abuse. They grew up under all types of horrible circumstances. They were able to change their financial reality. They were able to change their monetary reality, but they still have a poverty spirit on them. And it takes a person with real eyes to be able to see it. They cultivate, or they focus mainly on expanding their pockets. They're not about expanding their energy centers. They're not about expanding their consciousness, as they try to tell people that they are. They're only about expanding their pockets, expanding their egos, because these people are the Antichrist. Not the beast. They're the Antichrist. The real beast is the subconscious mind. That's the beast that comes to destroy humanity. But they put the ego in that driver's seat to confuse people. And the credit for that goes to my friend Glenn, who pointed that out to me. These people are the Antichrist. They have an Antichrist mentality. That is why they lack compassion. That is why they treat people the way that they do, especially other black people who patronize them, who respect them, who look up to them. That's why they treat black people the way that they do, because they really don't give a fuck about other black people. Because these people are disconnected from spirit. They're disconnected from soul. Because they have become the Antichrist. And they don't, and most of them don't even know it. And this is the same thing that happened to Joan Crawford. She was so determined to get out of physical poverty that she neglected and forgot to get out of mental poverty as well. That is why she was unable to show love and compassion and patience to her two adoptive children, Christina and Christopher Crawford. And Christopher Crawford, he died in 2006. She treated him very badly. Because Joan Crawford, nothing against her acting. I like her as an actress, and I like her, as far as style and everything. She was a fly motherfucking lady. She could dress her motherfucking ass off. So hats off to Miss Crawford for that. But she had a poverty mindset. But people are bamboozled because people have no vision. They can't really see. People are bamboozled and they are tricked by money, big houses, fancy furniture, nice clothes. They are tricked by these things because they think that that is the only way, or that's the only part of being successful, and it's not. You see these niggas now in the black conscious community, they the same fucking way. They live in these big homes. Ain't no jealousy, because I wouldn't trade my life for theirs for nothing. They live in these big homes. They got all these people kissing their ass. But they have a poverty spirit because they have not gotten rid of that stain from their childhood, the poverty that they had to live in. They again, like Joan Crawford, they were so determined to expand their pockets that they neglected to expand their hearts. They neglected to expand their minds. In American Horror Story Season 3, do you remember the character of Fiona Good, played by Jessica Lange? Fiona was part of that Antichrist energy as well. She was the supreme, the queen of all witches. She was beautiful. She was a bitch. She was powerful, or at least it seemed like she was. But when you really peeled back the layers of Fiona Good, and she was a Taurus as that. She was a Taurus at that, excuse me. You know, well, at least Jessica Lange is. I don't know what Fiona's zodiac sign was. Um, she was the supreme. She had powers. She was powerful. But she was operating in her ego. She was the personification of the Antichrist, the ego. She had powers. She could do whatever. She was the supreme. Everybody feared her. She had a lot of money. But the one thing that she did not have, remember when she tried to sell her soul to Papa Legba for immortality? Remember what he said to her? The deal is off. You have nothing to offer. You have no soul. There's a big misconception that if you're black or African American or of African descent or have melanin, that automatically means that you have a soul. And I'm here to tell you that that's not really true. That's not really true. It takes more than having melanin to have a soul. It takes more than that. Just on a side note, I've learned that from spirit. Um, she had nothing to bargain with. She had no soul. So she could not get immortality through Papa Legba because she had nothing to bargain with. What did I tell you about the Antichrist and the ego? Disconnection from soul. Disconnection from your spirit. And this world is run on that type of motherfucking energy. The black conscious community is run on that type of motherfucking energy. Them niggas have nothing to bargain with because most of them don't have a fucking soul. A lecturer is different from a spiritualist. Let me say that again. A lecturer is different from a spiritualist. How the fuck you a motherfucking spiritualist and you can't even create wealth for yourself? Here I took nothing. I practically had nothing in my life. I don't ask nobody for no motherfucking cash apps. I don't ask nobody for no fucking donations. I was homeless for a fucking year. And I didn't ask anybody for anything. Because I know how to use my hoodoo. My ancient fucking magic to get what I want. That is why I'm 42 years old and people think that I'm still in my fucking 30s. Now, some people say that that's, you're not using enough of your pineal gland and all that old bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. No, what that means is that whatever I'm doing, whatever spiritual work I'm doing, whatever spirit I'm working with, it's compatible with my motherfucking energy. If you're doing work and because I knew this Hispanic lady that I was cool with over at the hotel that I was staying at when I was homeless for that brief period of time. She was into Santeria. Me and her were talking. We became cool. And she was like, it made her get really, really old. And she stopped doing it because she started having health problems and shit behind you doing that work. If you're doing work and working with certain energies and you're getting health problems and getting sick, that work is not for you. because she was amazed at the fact that I was at that time 41. She was like, "It's no way you're 41." And I said, "Maybe it's that voodoo that I do." I said, "Maybe it's that dark voodoo that I do." And that's how she and I started talking. And she was saying she was raised in Santeria, but she stopped because it started causing her to have health problems and stuff like that. That's because she wasn't working with the right energy for her. See, I don't work with anything that doesn't approach me first. See, the Holy Mother of change and rebirth stepped to me and said, "Holler at me." And that's all I'm going to say on that. And when I started intertwining my energy with the right energy, because that energy's me and I am it, that's why I can't be fucked with. And that's not ego, that's truth. Because you never underestimate people. And that is the mistake that people with the AntiChrist mentality, they underestimate people. I don't underestimate anyone. Because anybody can fuck you up. Anybody can surpass you. It's not about how many albums you sell. It's not about how good you rap. Truthfully. What are you doing to expand your consciousness? Not your material wealth, not your pockets, not to expand your followers on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all these other fucking places. What are you doing to expand your consciousness? What are you doing to activate your crown? Because right now, a lot of y'all, the people what's sitting on your throne is that entity known as your ego, which the ego was created for a purpose, but it got out of hand. That's what the alien movies are all about. You know what, Sigourney Weaver? That's what those movies are all about. But going back to American Horror Story Season 3 for a minute, isn't it interesting that they merged Season 3 with Season 8? Isn't that interesting? They merged Season 3 with Season 8. Remember they brought the Coven into the Apocalypse season? Because they were showing you, people probably missed it, they were showing you the war between the ego and the subconscious mind. Michael Langdon, the Antichrist, was the ego. The witches were the subconscious mind. Because the subconscious is divine feminine energy. And although they used white women, to explain the story, that's okay. It's feminine energy, doesn't matter. They showed you that in the end, the subconscious mind always wins. And then going back to Season 3, even Marie Laveau had some things to answer for when she died. Because remember, when Fiona Good died, she ended up in her own personal hell. Because she spent probably multiple lifetimes, she spent that particular lifetime as Fiona Good. And the only thing that she cultivated was her materialism. She did not have a heart light as a feather. She mistreated people. She abused people's energy. Here we go with that Taurus Scorpio energy again. She mistreated people. She abused their energy because she was the supreme. She was equivalent to some of these niggas who are so-called high-level occultists in the black conscious slash occult magical community. She was just like them. When I look at that character of Fiona Good, I see a lot of those motherfuckers. I see that energy in a lot of those motherfucking niggas. Because they don't have any motherfucking soul. All they have is their ego. The ego is a good illusionist. It can fiend, it can fake. All types of shit. So when Fiona died, she ended up with that axe murderer, the last person that she probably wanted to spend eternity with. And basically what it was showing you was she cultivated a lifetime of materialism. And as a result of that, when she died, that was the reality that she created for herself. Didn't nobody send her there? The Axeman, if I'm not mistaken, I think he even told her. She thought that her daughter sent her there, Cordelia. You know, the one that they treated so badly because Cordelia did not have any active powers. It wasn't until Myrtle Snow, her mentor, said, Cordelia, you need to take the 7 wonders to find out if you're the supreme because you have royal blood flowing through your veins. Because Cordelia, the only thing she was doing was potions and shit like that. Because she was that outcast like myself. I'm the outcast. I'm the gay guy. I'm the gay guy. I'm the outcast that nobody really likes. For real, for real. So I resonated with the character of Cordelia. Not, she's a woman, but I'm talking about the energy. Cordelia was the Christ. She was the subconscious mind. Because remember, she ended up going blind. She took her own eyes out. And then when she became supreme, after she did the 7 wonders. Remember, she did the 7 wonders. Let me check something right quick. Where's my phone? Oh, shit. Where's my fucking phone? I can't find it. But it was something I wanted to check in regards to that. Let me see. Shit. Oh, where my phone at? Shit. I can't find it. But she did the 7 wonders, like all of those witches did, to find out if they were, you know, the supreme or not. Where's my fucking phone? Shit, I can't find it. But there's a connection between 7 and Christ. If I'm not mistaken, there's a connection between the number 7 and Christ. They did the 7 wonders. And when Cordelia did the 7 wonders, when she rose up, when they said a new supreme rises, they were talking about the rise of Christ's energy in her, or the rise in Christ's energy. And when she did the 7 wonders, remember Cordelia's blindness was cured. Because she removed her mother, who was a fake supreme. She embodied nothing that had to do with that position. She was a horrible fucking supreme. And Cordelia removed the ego. Cordelia was the subconscious mind, removing the ego and placing itself back into the throne, on the throne. So Cordelia had reached her throne and she had removed her mother, who was the false ego. And Cordelia took her rightful place as the subconscious mind and the Christ energy on the throne. Then, when her mother died, she went to a place that was a result of how she treated people, of how she neglected her subconscious mind. It's not about being a good person per se. Let me be clear about that. It's not about that per se. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking in those layman terms. But I'm talking about your subconscious mind and how your ego can control it. And if you're led by your ego, like a lot of these Negroes in the Black conscious community, if you're led by your ego, then there's no way you can say that you have a heart as light as a feather. And it takes people with real fucking vision to see that some of these niggas, they're led by their ego. They're not led by their subconscious. They're led by their ego. A lot of us have battles with our ego. And that's okay. We're in a human body and we're having a human experience. But when you put yourself in a position as this or that, there are certain expectations, no matter what you may think, there are certain expectations that people might have of you. And you don't have to live up to them. I'm just saying. You ain't got to live up to them for me. I don't give a fuck about none of them niggas. But I'm using this as an example and as a template to show people how this Antichrist energy is the ego. And it's not one person like it appears to be in the Bible. It's much bigger than that. It's actually worse than that. Because multiple people are Antichrist in their own way. Because they have abandoned their subconscious mind. They have abandoned their spirit. They have abandoned their foundation. And they have allowed themselves to be taken over by this entity known as the ego. See, one thing that I've noticed about myself, and nobody can take me off my motherfucking game again, I've never been totally under the control of my ego. I never really needed anybody to help me with that. I've never been under total control of my ego. I've always maintained, and I've always, now that I really look back at it with the clarity, I've always been conscious. I've always been conscious. Always. Doesn't matter what my sexual orientation is. You know, them ignorant motherfucking niggas in the conscious community, you know, they judge everyone. That's another sign that they are not operating with the right energy. They judge everyone based on their sexual orientation. Even the ones who pretended to be okay with me, but in the back of their minds, they still had an issue with that. Even though I don't live with any of them, even though I don't see any of them, nor do I consider any of them niggas no friends or nothing like that. But they have an issue with that. They're very judgmental about that. That's not no Christ consciousness. And I'm not talking about the context of, of Christianity or biblical context of, oh, I love you. No, you ain't gotta, you don't have to love me. You don't have to love anybody. Truth be told, the choice is yours. We're talking about recognizing the Antichrist in you, because that's what that Bible was talking about. When it was talking about the beast rising up out of the ocean, the ocean is symbolic for millions and millions of people. The ocean is symbolic for the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is feminine energy. It's intuition, it's emotion. So get off the bullshit about you shouldn't be so emotional. When I hear people, occultists, say you shouldn't be emotional, you're having a human experience. When people betray you and hurt you, you're going to be emotional about that. If you're not emotional about it, then you're not fucking human and you're not connected to soul or spirit. You're an entity, not a spirit. But the beast rising up out of the ocean is talking about this facade beast. This facade, not beast, but this facade entity known as the ego, aka the Antichrist, rising up out of the ocean, rising up from the subconscious, as if it's the subconscious. When it talks about how this Antichrist will pretend to be the Lord, in the Bible it says that it will pretend to be God or Christ. It's talking about this Antichrist, aka the ego, pretending to be the Christ energy. And it will give you and show you miracles and make things fall from the sky and all that old bullshit. But it's a fake illusion, just like a lot of these motherfucking niggas in the conscious community. They're Antichrist. They're not really connected to the Christ energy. The ones that were really connected to the Christ energy, they're either dead or they were taken out. Okay? They're either dead or they were taken out. And Bobby Hemmett, he was one of them. He was one of them connected to that energy. And even he used to talk about, motherfucking niggas doing all this spiritual work just to get a fucking house. To say they got a big fucking house. But when you peel back the layers and when you really examine them, their house is empty. Because the house is when you dream of a house, for example, if you have a dream of a house, according to what I've studied, is symbolic of the soul. A lot of these niggas have big homes, but ain't nothing in it. And I'm not talking about furniture. I'm talking about their empty vessels. Number one, because they're men. And there's only so much that we can teach and do spiritually. Now, I can do a little bit more because I'm gay and I'm tapped into more feminine energy than heterosexual men. Those are just facts. They have to deal with it. I can see people's auras. I can see the energy around people. I can see people's intentions. And if I look around your body and if I see that your aura is very dim or very, very if the colors are very, very heavy, then I know that you are a very deceptive person that's not true in this. Because you hear a lot of people say that the object of this game is to not have to incarnate or reincarnate in this world again. But how about this? How about it? It may not even be none of that. What if it's about being able to do whatever the fuck you want to do? Because I look at it like this. I like incarnating into the physical world and having fun, enjoying physical pleasures of sex and food and culture. How about this? What if it's not about not incarnating in the world anymore, physical world, but what if it's more so about you being able to do that and do whatever else you want to do? What if it's about you being able to incarnate and having a master level over what you want to do in a physical world? Or what if it's about you creating your own physical world to incarnate in where you control everything? And you no longer knowing or no longer experiencing the pain of physical death in the way that we know here in this physical world, in this particular physical world. Because you hear a lot of people say, a lot of occultists say, oh, the object of this is to die and never have to come back. But what if the object is really to be able to do whatever you want to do? If you want to come back, you come back on your motherfucking terms. You come back and do what you want to do. You don't come back on somebody else's terms. You come back on your terms and do what you want to do. Or create a reality or a world or a universe where you can do that. You create it with the quantum physics and that type of reality where you can come back and do the things you want to do. See, everything is so one-dimensional in this motherfucking conscious community shit. Because everybody wants to be the grand poopah on everything. Fuck reading them motherfucking books. What is your spirit telling you? Fuck them books. What's your spirit telling you? See, if you have wisdom, knowledge is not that far behind. Here is wisdom, knowledge. They're both right there. Wisdom is the key to knowledge. And wisdom is something that the Antichrist types of mentality people, or the people with that mentality, wisdom is something that they don't have. All they have is knowledge. Because if Michael Langdon, they showed you this again in American Horror Story Season 8, The Apocalypse. If Michael Langdon had wisdom, he would have known that he underestimated the witches. See, that entity that they keep calling Satan and they try to intertwine it in with the ego, that's not the real Satan. That's part of the ego. Remember in The Apocalypse, American Horror Story, Season 8, when Michael Langdon and Anton LaVey and Kathy Bates and that other chick, remember they were in the murder house and it was the black mass, the black satanic mass. And he cut out the heart of that girl that Kathy Bates had picked up and kidnapped and drugged for that sacrifice. And remember, when they were doing that ritual, there was this figure that was rising up behind him like a shadow. And people think that that's Satan, but it wasn't. He was being led by the shadow ego. Because the ego has a shadow as well. But again, it's weak and it's fragile and frail like its counterpart. You understand what I'm saying? We are up under an Antichrist energy, and we live up under ego, aka Antichrist energy. It's not about one person. And it's not a white man. You can't, it's not no white man. You know, everybody wants to blame, oh, it's a white man Antichrist. Nah. There are multiple Antichrists. Black, white, Hispanic, Mexican. You can't just blame it on no motherfucking white man, okay? Because I see Antichrist in all colors. Because Antichrist is a systemic way of thinking. It's a systemic way of being. It's a way of life. And anything that disconnects you, from your soul source, or whatever the case may be, or anything that disconnects you from your spirit, that's an Antichrist entity. And the ego is the Antichrist. And we all have an ego. And sometimes you got to tap into that ego to get things, to make a point. But when you allow it to control you to the point where you're hurting people and causing people harm under the guise of being a person of integrity in the occult community, like a lot of these niggas do, then that's a problem. And that is why I really support black women, real black women, not black women who are under the a mantle of toxic masculine energy and following that lead. I'm talking about black women who are in their own energy, their divine feminine energy, okay? I've heard people say, oh, toxic feminine energy. There's no such thing. Any woman that's toxic, that's toxic masculine energy that she has been infected with from dealing with these no good ass motherfucking niggas. And I don't give a fuck who's offended by it, partner. That is why I support real black women getting back on their throne, because that's the only way things are going to be corrected. The black woman is the throne. You know? This ain't no ego trip, so don't get it twisted. It's about energy, frequency, and vibration. Simple as that. You know? But we are living up under an Antichrist rule. Politics, sports, entertainment, all of that. Take out the white supremacy and put in Antichrist supremacy. That's what we're living up under. Take out the white supremacy or put that to the side for a minute. And this is not alleviating, the terrorism that black people have had to go through in this country at the hands of racist white people. But what about the emotional terrorism that black people inflict on one another? Nobody talks about that. And emotional terrorism and emotional abuse and spiritual abuse is just as bad as physical. You understand what I'm saying? Because all of this connects to the age of the Antichrist. It's not one person that's going to rule the world. That's the diversion. That's the trick to make you think that. It's not one person that's going to rule the world and sit over in Jerusalem physically. That's not what they're talking in that temple over there. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about masses of people being up under this spell. Masses of people up under this systemic facade known as the ego and the Antichrist. Greed, self-gratification, and no expansion of consciousness. You know, now when I go back, and I normally wouldn't put this, on, but I think I did mention it before publicly on somebody else's platform. But now when I really go back and think about the dream that I had with Bobby Hemmett in it, because I've had communications with Bobby Hemmett in dreams. And now when I really go back and when I examine what that energy was trying to say to me, it was trying to tell me then, see, at first, because I was caught up in, some bullshit that I shouldn't have been, I couldn't see straight. But now that I've cleared those blockages, what Mr. Hemmett was trying to tell me was that I need to take back control of my mind from this entity called the ego, aka the Antichrist. He was telling me that in a dream. And this was a few years ago. And in the dream, it was showing me how I had all of these things around me that was feeding the ego, but it wasn't feeding my subconscious mind because I was still holding on to, childhood, physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. I was still holding on to ideas of people who I thought meant me well, but they really didn't. Because I wanted validation so badly. And I can admit that. But boy, let me tell you, when I ended up homeless last year, briefly, boy, did that shift my consciousness into a whole nother motherfucking level. See, sometimes pain is your motherfucking gain. And I had already known that that was coming because I had a dream that foretold that those things were coming. So I was already kind of mentally and subconsciously prepared for that. Because I had a dream that there was something. The dream even foretold this whole COVID shit that we're going through now. So I was already expecting what I was expecting to come. But when I went through that experience being homeless, that knocked my ego right off of its motherfucking throne. Doesn't mean that it doesn't try to crawl back every now and then. But I knocked that fucking ego off of that knocked the ego off of the throne. And it put me back in the position, I'm talking about the real me, my subconscious, it put me back in the position that I belong in. So when I look back, because I do have prophetic, or what people would call prophetic dreams. So when I look back at that dream that I had about Bobby Hemmett and what he was trying to tell me, I understand it now. He was telling me that I needed to shed and let go of my ego and remove it from my crown, my throne, and stop being distracted by the things around me that feed the ego. I get it now. I get it. Anyway, that's all I really came to say. Like it, love it. It's all up to you. But don't be bamboozled. Talk to you later.